On the last night of my trip, I boondocked in Klondike Bluffs, just north of Moab. In the morning, I aimed to check out the Klondike trails to the north, and rather than backtrack to Highway 191, I saw on the map a road leading to the northern trailheads. The road to this point had been rough gravel, but otherwise very undemanding. I assumed this would be the same. It was not. It turned out to be more of an adventure than I expected, and I tested the four-wheel drive and the lean tip-over angle of a high-sided, totally stock Winnebago Revel 4x4. This was the film I did not intend to record, but let's come along for the ride and see how well it does. Now, because I wasn't planning on recording a video, I didn't check my dash cam, and it was pointing a little bit into the ground on top of my hood. So the video at the beginning is pretty bad. Ultimately, I do realise that and I correct the video. But at this point, I realise I'm beginning to get into something a little more challenging than I anticipated. I'm basically driving through sand. I stop and take a photo and send it to my wife thinking, they call this a road? And this is just the start of it. Now this is where I got the first real downside to the Revel. The Revel is a large vehicle. It is just under 10 foot high. And this trail doesn't have many trees, but it has one tree. And it goes right over the trail. And I did not realise that my Revel was higher than the tree. Basically, the low branch of the tree ran into the top of the Revel, across the top, and I broke off the branch. I get out and check. Luckily, the Revel was fine. But it's the first thing to consider when off-roading. The Revel is large. You're not going to fit under most places Jeeps and 4Runners go. This thing is going to be taking branches off left, right and centre. And this also gets me to my first major obstacle. I've got a split in the road here. To the right is the easy line. To the left is the more difficult line. The right is narrower than the van. As I said, the van is big. So I go out, check, I look at it, think, well, I might give the narrow way, the easy line, a try. But ultimately, I give up, I back out, I decide not to do that. I then try the more difficult line. The more difficult line, the road basically tips slightly. It then has a kind of a kick-up step of about 18 inches to 2 foot on loose sand, but with a hole beside it, so you kind of have to get the wheel up that step to get up and over it. So this is what I try. Now the van is in 4-wheel drive, but it's not in 4-low. Traction control systems and everything are standard at this point. Basically, what I'm finding is that I've got the gas down, but nothing much is happening. The van hits that hump, and it just will not go over it. I think basically the van is cutting power to the wheels through the traction control system. So I try a few times, and then I also try with the traction control off. That didn't particularly help either. So I back the van back down the trail, jump out and take a closer look. Try to work out a plan for how to get over this hump here. When I'm walking around on it actually gives you a sense of scale on the size of it. Remember, the van is really big. When you look at it through the camera, the trail doesn't look much at all. But really, we're looking at an 18-inch gully down the middle of the trail with a near 2-foot hump from the low point of the gully that the wheel has to get up and over. Also, at this point, it dawns on me I should be videoing this to see what happens with the van. So I run back and grab the camera and set up the GoPro. At this point, video actually starts to get a little interesting. Emboldened by my analysis, I give it my final attempt. It paused, I wiggle the steering wheel, turn it to the right to try to grab traction, and I make it. After clearing that hurdle, the road was fairly mild and easy for the Revel. It was mostly packed dirt, a few minor ruts, some rocks, some gully washes to go through that were sandy. Just took those slow and the Revel dropped in and out again. It has a 28-degree clearance angle, so that's pretty easy to drop in like here into a little gully and then back out again. It was only at this point where the road had a sign beside it saying road damage 4x4 high clearance vehicles only that I began to pause again, wondering, should I turn back now or continue on? I check the road ahead and decide that I'm good to continue. So the trail here is pretty tight and narrow, and it drops and kind of swoops left and right. There's actually quite a hole here, but at least it's level. So the van is pitching forward quite a lot, and then it lifts back out. Yes, sorry, the video is terrible. But at this point, I realize I should be videoing this, so I stop and set up my camera for the undulations coming up. But I really miss an opportunity on what turns out to be the most challenging feature the van does. You'll get a sense of it as you look at the back wheel and the back of the van as it passes. You'll also hear the wheels scrabbling for traction. But look, all the weight of the van is going on the back wheel and it's beginning to tip very seriously over as I hit the next undulation. So this is the in-cab view. Here the front wheel drops into the hole just beyond the camera, and it continues to drop, and it continues to drop, and it continues to drop, and I lean and gradually pull my way out, still leaning off to the side. Still on a very strong lean, I pull myself out of the hole and back up onto flat terrain with my heart pumping.
Okay, that was insane. You didn't see this one on camera because I was looking at that area. But the real thing was here. When we hit this, I was at about a 40-degree lean going into this hole and then back up. But the van made it. The biggest problem I was concerned about was not the traction, but just the rollover. I don't know what a Sprinter has on a rollover angle, but I must have been, like 35 pushing close to 40 degree. That's what it felt like. Perhaps it wasn't that bad, perhaps it was 30 degree, but it was like, it was about the most I would ever consider for a vehicle to lean over. I've never leaned any vehicle over as much as that before, let alone a high-sided Winnebago Revel. So that's quite impressive. Luckily, although I've got some weight on top, I'm fully laden with water and the water tanks are right at the very bottom, so all the center of gravity is actually pretty low. Anyway.
So after that, the road becomes, again, pretty tame again, and I finally fix my dashcam camera angle so we can actually see where we're going. The road after that gully was very similar to the rest of the trail. Hard packed dirt, some sand, some slight erosion, but basically a fairly tame trail until I got to this point here. I really wanted to avoid driving on the grass to the left like many others have, but the hole going into the trail to the right and then the climb up and the slope, although it doesn't look much on video, was actually worse than the one where I was pushing 30 degrees. I thought I'd take a look, give it a try. I could see how the fan was leaning, and even before I got to the steep stuff, I was like, no, I'm not doing this, I'm backing out, I'm taking the alternate line. I have seen a video where a Sprinter 4x4 unladen can drive on a slope that's around 40 to 45 degrees, but this is a built-out RV, the Revel. That puts it into a different predicament, so I don't know at what point this fan might tip. I certainly wouldn't push it more than 40 degrees, and that gap might have been that.
Well, I made it from the southern end to the northern end of Klondike's Bluff in the van on the 4x4 road. I thought that was going to be just a gravel track like the other tracks around here, but no, that was a proper four-wheel drive, high clearance Jeep road with sandy washouts, some severe off camber, and a few rocks and stuff to get around. But hey, the van made it. We really pushed the limits of what this thing can do, and it did it with no problem. Only one place I almost got stuck, and I had to do some real work to get the traction and get that going. But beyond that, it handled it marvelously. May have a few scrapes on the side. Yeah. Oh no, that's just sand. That's good. Hopefully they'll buff out again. This thing needs a wash anyway. So I'm at Mega Steps Trailhead. I wasn't sure if I was gonna mountain bike ride today. That's why I wanted to come up here and check out the trails. But now I've done that adventure, I think that's good for the day. I'm gonna head back to Denver. Oh man, just a few scrapes. Yeah. Hopefully this will wash off. Nothing too serious, I hope. So, I'll tell you, the van had sensors all around it, and they were just pinging a large part of the route, going beep, 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 beep. Because the van was pretty much as wide as the trail in many places. So, and I know I took a part of a branch off a tree. I hit the tree at the top. Don't appear to have any real damage to the roof though, so that's good. But the van is as high as one of the trees on the route as well, and there's no other way around it. So anyway, that was an example of the off-road capabilities of a Winnebago Revel. I'm kind of laughing and giddy because I wasn't expecting to do that, and that was hilarious. So anyway, I don't know if this applies to van life, because I usually do mountain bikes, but see you on another trail sometime. Bye.